Cincinnati, and we all got really happy. Grabbed a bowl of that Skyline chili along the way. Then we rolled on into Canton, scared the hell out of Marilyn Manson, and the party started happening. Hey, hey, hey. And in the middle of a Charleston night, we ran into Jessica White.
From Gus Johnson, great interview we had with him Friday, so look forward to hearing that, and because I didn't get to hear it the first time around. Also, we hear from Tom Allen, his post-game thoughts, and then later on today we'll be meeting with some players, Tom Allen, and all the coaches today after the program's over. We'll have that for you tomorrow, but man, there's just no way to sugarcoat it. That performance just stunk. It sucked. Indiana stunk up the field Saturday against Ohio State. Granted, the Buckeyes, one of the best teams in the country, a team that is going to be fighting for a spot in the national playoffs. So it's not like this was against some chump, but at the same time, Indiana has played these teams in recent years to a competitive fight at least. And that was nowhere evident on the Memorial Stadium field Saturday. They handed it to Indiana in every way possible. And there are some things that are of great concern right now when you look at the statistics. The biggest thing is the running game. Man, we saw this in the Ball State game and thought, okay, it's an anomaly. It's the first game of the season. Then Eastern Illinois, a team that they just destroyed 52-0 and threw all over, but couldn't really run on, which is very scary. And then, of course, Ohio State holds Indiana to 42 yards rushing. I mean, if you look at the statistics, that is an ugly, gaudy number that jumps off the page because Ohio State had 528 total yards, 214 through the air, 314 on the ground. Another area of concern. Then you look at Indiana's side, 215 total yards passing, 50 of that, 49, is coming from Donovan Hale to Peyton Hendershot on a trick play. So you take that off the board, and you're looking at about 160 yards passing by the quarterback. And then you look at the rushing yards, 42. 42 total yards. Stevie Scott, the bell cow running back for Indiana, he had 9 attempts and gained 6 yards. I'm sorry, it's 6 attempts and gained 9 yards. That's 1.5 yards per carry from your guy. It was just not. The most rushes came from Peyton Ramsey because he was running for his life. He ended up with 14 attempts, getting 14 yards, averaging a yard a carry. The most anybody averaged was Samson James. He ran the ball 4 times, gained 14 yards for 3.5 yards a carry. That's almost in respectability. That is respectable, especially against the Ohio State. But, man, there are some problems. I hate to say it, but it's the truth, and you got to say it. There's just no way of getting around it. There are some serious issues. When you see him in the Ball State game, you're like, it makes you wonder, but you expect it to go away and slowly get better. It ain't. Not at all. Larry from Bloomington texted in, the O-line and D-line play has to get better either by coaching up or better players. That being said, we may have played the national champion on Saturday. They're really good. Larry in Bloomington, have a great show. Thank you, Larry. But he's right. He's right. There has to be better play, and it starts at the line. Everything starts in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And, again, as Larry acknowledged, I've acknowledged, that's one of the best teams in the country, and that's the toughest game that's the toughest team Indiana will play this season. There's no doubt. My gosh, were they fast on defense? I mean, they were fast. Peyton Ramsey, he did all he could do. He did everything he could within his capabilities. That's part of the problem is there are several deep passes that were open but missed, either off, passes short, or whatever the case may be. They just were not there. And there were times where Wapfilia was loose and the ball, he had to slow down and wait for it. And by the time that gave the defender time to close. And that's been the knock on Peyton Ramsey, the inability to throw that long ball accurately and effectively. We saw it there. But now the rest of it, man, he got sacked for 4 or 5 times, and there was just nothing. Nothing. The funny thing is, this week Indiana plays UConn. They're a 28-point favorite. 28-point favorite. I just – and I don't know that UConn's that bad. I just Tim texted in the show, is Ohio State that good or we that bad? It looked like both. He said his grandma can run more than 42 yards. Well, they could sure use her. From also from Tim on to basketball, Archie and staff are visiting 6'11" Canadian Javonte Brown Ferguson, who may reclassify to the 2020 class. As Archie continues to try to get somebody for this front line that I've been banging. There's a drum I've been banging that they have to land a big guy this year. Have to. You have to for roster balance. Or then next year you're going to be off. You're going to have freshmen coming in the following season when you're going to be very low. The front court's going to be depleted by then. Concerns there as well. Let me get to some good news for the Hoosiers. And feel free to text into the show anytime, like Larry did, like Tim did. The number 812-269-6367. You can text. Of course, we're live 9 to 11 Monday through Friday, but you can text us anytime. I will get to it. I'll read it on the air, and we'll talk about it. Over the weekend, the Indiana women's soccer team goes down to Lexington, Kentucky, and plays an undefeated UK team. The women's volleyball team, also in Lexington, taking on the number 15 Kentucky women's volleyball team. Guess what? Indiana wins both of those. The women's volleyball team with a huge 5-set victory for Coach Steve Aird and that squad. They beat the Wildcats. They lost 16-25 the first, 25-22, 12-25, 25-20, and then they win the final decisive match 15-11. That was in Memorial Coliseum. That's where Kentucky used to play their basketball games. But, man, what a huge win. I think that I saw that was the first ranked road win in several years for Indiana. So congratulations to Steve Aird. We'll have him on the program tomorrow. We'll be talking to him later on today, and I think Brianna Wise maybe as well, Brianna. So looking forward to that. But congratulations to the Indiana women's volleyball program. But it wasn't just them. How about women's soccer going down and taking on an undefeated Kentucky women's soccer team? Handed Kentucky their first loss of the season as they defeated the Wildcats 1-0 Sunday afternoon. Melanie Forbes scored the only goal of the contest in the 17th minute. It was her first career game winner. It was her first goal of the season. An assist goes to Avery Lockwood. And that score would hold up. That's the first goal Kentucky has allowed in 4 games. So congratulations to Edwin Van Bennekom, coach, and the rest of that team. I mean, he's building that program up. He's already taken them down to play number 2 North Carolina on the road. They go down to Kentucky, an undefeated Kentucky team on the road. Things are looking up for those women's programs. Congratulations to both you guys. But back to the realities of the big sports. Let's face it, the bell cow sports for Indiana basketball and football. Going to be an interesting season for the basketball program. I noticed that Calbert Chaney will be taking part of Hoosier Hysteria this season. So there's another reason for you to show up. One of the all-time favorites of Indiana basketball history, the leading scorer of the Big Ten, Calbert Chaney, going to be at Hoosier Hysteria. Coming up soon, man. What, are we a couple of weeks away from that? It's crazy. October's almost here. It's nuts. Lots of great football over the weekend, though. My gosh. The Colts. How about the Colts? They're involved in a tight one that some questions coming out today. Adam Vinatieri is supposed to speak today. Is he going to announce his retirement? That's a very possible scenario. Tim texted in, he missed 5 extra points and field goals in his last 2 games. It's been very sad to see the greatest kicker in the history of the NFL, a kicker that has been so good for the Colts over 14 seasons. Is it 14 or 16? But a long, long time. He's 46 years old, and to see him have these struggles, it's already cost the Colts 1 game, and it damn near cost him yesterday. Is they went up 19-17 on a late touchdown, but they missed the extra point that could have been detrimental had they, was it Tennessee, been able to get down and kick a field goal. And boy, the defense come up strong enough to hold them off from that. The Colts end up getting the win, but Adam Vinatieri is supposed to be speaking with the media today, which is not a normal thing. They usually don't talk to the media on Monday, so that could be coming up. Hey, man, we got a lot coming up on the program today on this Monday. Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, is going to be with us later on. That's in the next hour. Mike Schumann also in the next hour as well, as we'll also go over the debacle that was Ohio State this past Saturday, a Fox National TV audience. Of course, Gus Johnson on the call. Had the opportunity to speak with Gus. You'll hear from him next. Lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. And again, thanks to Jeremy Temple Law Office to take us out to Noah Wyatt, our big winner last week for that game. I'm not sure how much of a big winner he feels now, but thanks to Jeremy Temple Law Office in Bloomington. But we'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is A.J. Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
I'm Ryan Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
You're on the line with Jamal Meeks, former Indiana Hoosier, number 23, 1992. And I'm on the beat with Jim Cole.
This is James Whiteman Jr., former Indiana Hoosier. Make sure you're keeping up with the Hoosiers on Indiana Sports Beat.
Today's guest is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, with hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer. Pizza, burgers, beer. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
I remember not too long ago. Kaiser fires deep, looking for Philip. Down the sideline, touchdown.
You know that voice, it's one of the most electric in all of sports, and we could not be happier or prouder to have the great Gus Johnson with us today. Gus, how are you, man?
What's up, baby man? I'm doing well. I'm here in the Nap, getting ready to go up to Bloomington to watch practice and talk to Coach Allen and his boys, so I'm excited.
You know, that's the one thing. Exciting is a word that comes to mind anytime I hear. When I was growing up, I was loved to listen. I know all the announcers and knew them all. And then all of a sudden, this guy comes along, and it's like they call you the voice, but I think they should call you the volt because you're a voltage of electricity. The energy you bring to the game is amazing, man.
I appreciate that. You know, I figure if we're going to be around each other for 4 hours, we might as well have fun, right?
It's right, man. Well, you certainly do. How did you develop?
Paint dry. We're here watching, our kids from college. We're watching our kids play ball. So we're supposed to be excited when we watch our kids, right? So
absolutely. Yeah, and that's one thing you do. You make it so exciting. How did you develop that style? Because growing up, there are so many of us. We hear these guys, and they all have their own styles and whatnot, but none of them have the electricity that you bring. So you kind of did something different, and that takes the cojones to do on that kind of a stage to do it that differently. And man, does it fly?
Well, I'm just being myself, man. I don't really know how much different it is. I'm just being myself. I played a lot of ball growing up. I played baseball, basketball, football. Played hockey from squirt all the way to band. I was a wrestler, Eastern Conference, regional champion. Had a chance to wrestle in the Junior Olympics as a kid. So wow. I just love ball, man. Played in high school, all Catholic league, football, basketball, all that stuff, man. Played college baseball. So I know what it's like out there. In my brief experience to have some success. So I just like going out there and watching those kids play and delighting in their excellence, whether it be in college or in the pros, and having a good time.
Hey, you're from Detroit originally, is that right?
Uh-huh.
That's a great sports town. I mean, what was some of the great sports moments when you were growing up in that city?
Oh, man. Well, growing up, 84 when the Tigers won the World Series, that was huge. Kirk Gibson hit that home run. That was my junior year in high school. That was huge. We also had some good, Barry Sanders came to Detroit. Prior to that, Billy Sims was there. We never had a great football team. Our Lions aren't great, as we've been seeing, but we love them anyway. Michigan football. Back when I was a kid, they had Rick Leach as a quarterback, Anthony Carter, wide receiver, Ron Simpkins, Butch Woolfolk, and Bo. We all love Bo. So those were some of the things that we, Tigers, Pistons, wings were good. Reed Larson, he was a good player. So Michigan State, we just love ball, man. That's all I can say.
Another great thing about when I think of Gus Johnson, I think of these great phrases. And then there's these, you made the commercial that it almost kind of makes light of it a little bit in a joking manner, which is funny. But man, you come up with all these phrases. Do you have people feeding you this stuff, coming up with all of it on your own? How do you come up with all these things?
Well, I read a lot, man. I read a lot of things, and I like to play with words. So some things come from just experience. Growing up as a kid from the inner city, playing ball with all kinds of different kids. My parents from the South. My dad had a bunch of funny sayings that he used to say to me all the time. He would say stuff like, boy, the more I teach you, the dumber I get. He would say stuff like that. He said, boy, talking to you, he was pointing at a brick wall. He would go, boy, talking to you is like talking to a brick wall. I don't get nothing back.
I think we grew up in the same house, man.
Yeah, right. He called me a big dummy all the time. You just grow up and people are clever. They're old sayings, because my parents were from the South, so there are all these old sayings and stuff like that. And I read a lot and I listen a lot. And some things just come, I remember we were doing that Ohio State game a couple of years ago. And the night before, me and my buddy, my spotter, Scott, he's a rapper. So he's a great writer. So he always comes up with phrases and stuff that I use sometimes. We'll be sitting around, because like last night we sat around talking about the game. We're excited about this game. I mean, what's going on with Penix? We're going to find out. What are you hearing?
Well, there's a video that we saw. I've been watching a clip that I've got on my Twitter account at Jim Coyle ISB, and there's a clip on his last touchdown pass to Peyton Hendershot, and you can see afterwards there's something not quite right with what appears to be his shoulder. He shakes it with his right hand, but he's left-handed, obviously. But as he's going off, you can see he's looking a little more freer with his right arm than his left. So I'm guessing that there's a little shoulder inflammation. Wasn't hit. We've been talking about that. We don't see where he's been hit or anything like that. So it's kind of like a non-contact injury that is affecting him.
Oh, okay. So we're going to find that out, because I'm going to drive up there after I get off the phone with you.
So they'll tell you the truth, Gus. They won't tell us the truth, but they'll tell you the truth when you're in there.
Hopefully they'll tell us something, because man, if that boy can play tomorrow, that kid can play, man. That kid is a prospect.
Yeah,
I'm looking at this Indiana team. I'm like, whoa, they look good. I know that their last game, their opponent wasn't. I'm excited to see them play Ohio State, because if you think about it, Justin Fields, Ryan Day, this is their first road game, so they had to sleep at the roadside inn tonight. It's not going to be a home game. They got to sleep at the Holiday Inn or sleep at the Red Roof Inn or something like that. And it's interesting to see. And I tell you, if I'm Indiana fans, I make sure they don't get any sleep. But that would just be me as a fan of my team.
Absolutely. Fortunately for Indiana, Peyton Ramsey has played a lot for them. As a matter of fact, he had his best game as a Hoosier against the Buckeyes last year, throwing for 322 yards over in Columbus. So, and with the advent of Kalen DeBoer, the offensive coordinator, that offense is like a machine gun, sprays that ball all over the place. So hopefully that's going to be mitigated some in that regard. But they've got at least a very experienced quarterback if Michael Penix can't go, in Peyton Ramsey.
But they look like they got a lot of speed. They're getting more speed. I was looking, they're getting a lot of guys in the skill position from the South. Am I right about that?
Well, Florida Pipeline, man. Tom Allen's got a Florida Pipeline.
And they said that I was reading the stuff last night, and they said that this is the best. 2019 is the best recruiting class in the history of the school. And that was
backed
best
up
one
by the
prior to that. So they got back-to-back great recruiting classes, 17 returning starters. I think I think the Hoosiers, if they play their game tomorrow, they could give Ohio State the business. They could give them the business. I could see it happening. I'm excited. I'm really excited. I can't wait to get up there today to Bloomington. It's such a spectacular day outside, man. Whoa.
The weather's going to be incredible. A great day for a broadcast on Fox tomorrow at noon. We can't wait for that. That's the only thing I hate about being in the media. We're fortunate in Indiana to have a great Don Fischer on the radio call, but calls like yours, I don't get to hear those. So it's disappointing that I don't get. I'll have to go back and rewatch the game so I can listen to the call. But it's going to be a spectacular day. When you travel to the different college towns, and we're very fortunate that Fox has the Big Ten rights because we get as much Gus Johnson as we can muster. But what do you enjoy about going to these different Big Ten cities?
Well, I mean, it's all about the people. It's really what it is. It's always about people. You know, it's not about the machine. It's about the people that run the machine. And I just love the nice people that I run into that are always, you know, excited about their team and their school, you know, positive, looking forward to it. I like the food. You know, last night we went to Champs here in Indianapolis. Well, first of all, I cheated yesterday afternoon when I got in. I went to the mall here in Circle City Mall, and I had mint chocolate chip and butter pecan ice cream. I haven't eaten any of that in a long time, man. And I enjoyed that. We walked around Naptown, just chilling. And then later on, you know, got some nachos and watched Thursday Night Football. So I don't know, man. It's nothing ever big. It's always the small things, the little things, that the experiences that you have with people, and then you get to the schools, and you know, I just love watching kids play ball, man. It's really not that big of a deal to me. It's natural, and I like to be excited about watching our kids play ball and say good things about our kids. And you know, I'm from the Midwest. There's a different mentality, to be honest with you. There's a different mentality between the Midwest and the East Coast. Hello?
Yeah, we're here. How do you prepare? Do you prepare differently for a football game versus a basketball game, Gus, when you're going into it? I mean, or is it just the same? It's a broadcast that you're preparing for.
Well, I've been doing this for 30 years, man. So, you know, it's pretty much the same. You just prepare. You want to know stories about the guys. That's all, where they come from. You know, what they've done, what they want to do, what their coaches want them to do, what they're good at, what they need to work on. You know, that's really what it's about. It's about the human element, talking about people and telling stories about people. That's what I like to do. And then watching what happens unfold. Watch the game. And because the game is in front of you. It's not on any notes or anything like that you may have, or all that homework that you supposedly do. It's the game is in front of you. The story is in front of you. So, like, for example, I mean, to say if Penix plays, that's big. You know, that's a big story. Now we go into it, and, you know, I'll you know, research it when I get up there. Say if Penix plays, we go into it and we say, hey, he's been nursing such and such and such. So then we get a chance to see how he plays. And then at the same time, we say, hey, they got Ramsey that was a starter that, you know, played well last week, that is right behind him. So there's no drop off. So that's a big story. And we look forward to seeing that story unfold. So that's kind of how I do it.
Yeah, maybe they're playing a little possum with Ohio State. They're pulling a little hardball magic out.
You never know. You never know. You never know. You now Ohio State. I mean, if you think about it, now Ohio State has to prepare for both those guys.
Absolutely, that's the
different
thing
kind
about
of quarterback.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to that. What's a game? The games like this, is every game a big game to you, or are the big games big games?
Every game's a big game to me, man. Every game, you know. Sometimes, you know, I'll share a secret with you. They actually hired me to call games on national television. Can you believe that? They hired me, man. You know, so every game is a big game. I don't care if it's you know, Michigan, Ohio State, or if it's St. Cecilia taking on Little Sisters of the Poor. You know, anytime I get a chance to go in front of a microphone and watch sports and talk about sports and call sports, you know, it's huge. So I never lose my enthusiasm for that. And I always make sure that, you know, I am 100% engaged in these great young people that I'm having an opportunity to see right in front of my eyes.
And you're, like I mentioned, Fox with the great affiliation with the Big Ten. How getting to cover the Big Ten, what do you like about covering this conference, and whether it's football or basketball?
I like everything about the Big Ten. I'm from the Big Ten. What's not to like? It's the greatest conference in the history of sport. You know, this is the conference of Jesse Owens. This is the conference of Jack Nicklaus. This is the conference of Gerald Ford. You know, I mean, this is the Big Ten. It's America. It's Americana. You know, I love the Big Ten. I love the stadiums, and I love the crowds, and I love the people, and I love the athletes, and I love the academics. You know, next week we're going to Wisconsin, Michigan, Wisconsin. This week we got Indiana. I've never called a football game at Indiana. I'm excited to go to Memorial Stadium. What's the crowd? The crowds are pretty good, right?
It's going to be a sold out. I'm certain of that. It'll be a packed house between Ohio State bringing their fans over, squeezing in, and Indiana fans. It's going to be a sold out.
Yeah, man. It's going to be a lot of crimson and cream and scarlet and gray in that place tomorrow. That's going to be exciting. You know, but that's what I like about it. I just love it. It's sports. It's the Big Ten. It's Bo and Woody and Bob Knight and Gene Katie and the Big Dog and the Fab Five and Charles Woodson and Archie Griffin, and you know, it's just legendary stuff, man. And I'm just so happy. I'm just so proud and honored to be a part of it.
Legendary stuff and a legendary announcer. I mean, and the fact is, you're still a young man, and you have already made such an impact on the industry, on sports, on American sports for people. I mean, I can think of so many games where I think of your call on a particular play or whatever, and how that call makes that so much better. I mean, it would have been great. The play's great in of itself, but your calls are just really add, and you never go over it. Even though you're grand, you don't seem like you ever go over the top.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Man, I just love sports, man. You know, sports saved my life. You know how it is when you're growing up and you know, you're changing, you're evolving, you might have stress in one area in school, or relationship with your girlfriend, or relationship with your parents, your dad, your mom, maybe you're beefing. I don't know. We all go through that kind of stuff. I could always find refuge in sports. It's funny, I'm doing it now in my life, to be honest with you. You know, I don't play basketball or football or baseball or anything like that anymore, but I'm like an avid golfer. And my mother was a golfer, right? And I was an athlete. I was playing all the sports in school, and mommy would come home and be like, yo, she started playing golf at work in the women's leagues. And all of a sudden I remember, because I was, you know, as a kid, I had a bunch of trophies and stuff. Mom started bringing home trophies. She was winning the long driving contests and stuff like that at the job. I was like, wow. So she was always trying to get me to, she said, baby, I want you to play golf. And I said, and I would listen to her, but I wasn't interested, you know. And she just would hound me about it, like hound me sometimes. I want you to play golf. And one day I said, Mommy, I don't want to play that sissy sport. And my mother was from the rural South, and she never cursed. She never cursed. My grandfather was a Baptist minister. My mother never cursed. But when I said that to her, she goes, baby, I love you so much, but you're a dumbass. And she said, you think you're going to be able to play football and basketball and baseball and hockey and all that stuff all your life? No. But when you get older, she said, you can play golf until, you know, you die. And she said, and baby, it's the sport of business. So, you know, I would mess around with it from time to time just because she would get on my butt. But I never took it too seriously. You know, I would go out over the years and, have some beers with my boys, and we would go out and hit the ball around. But she passed away about 5 years ago. And it's strange. When I was a kid, like I said, I found refuge in sports. Like, I was the kind of kid that I would practice, and I know this doesn't sound good. I would spend the extra 2 hours in the gym, right? As opposed to spending that extra 2 hours on my homework. That's how I got down. So Mom died. She passed 5 years ago. And I said to myself, I'm going to dedicate myself to becoming the best golfer that I can be, to honor my mother. And that's what I've done over the last 5 years. I started because I hadn't picked up a club. So I started from scratch. And I have an obsession about it now. Like, it's something that I think about during every free moment. When, it's something that I practice every day. When I'm free, I hit balls every day. When I'm in my hotel room, I'm working on my swing. I'm practicing every day. And it's funny because sometimes when I'll have a discovery, like, for example, lately I've been trying to work on turning my body. Like, to really, I was trying to work on what is the proper body turn? How do I stay connected to my body and turn as opposed to getting wristy or getting handsy? So I was at the range yesterday, and I've been working on it, and I've been making some strides, really good strides. But I've been having problems with my driver. My driver is like an untamed shrew to me. But yesterday I was working, and I finally figured something clicked, right? And I'm just bombing the ball. And it's funny because every time something happens on the golf course and that idea pops into my mind and I figure something out, I feel like that's me. That's my mom helping me, and we talking and we communicating, and we still working, and she's working from up top and I'm working from down here. So sports is everything to me. And I'm just, I'm the kind of person that is just appreciative to be given this kind of opportunity in my life to see all the things that I've seen and do all the things that I do. So nothing is contrived at all. It's organic and natural, and that's something I'm proud of.
Well, you should be, because it comes through loud and clear, and we're very fortunate to have you on the show today. But more importantly, fortunately to have you in sports and get to hear those great calls that Gus Johnson makes. And man, I can't thank you enough, man. We're grateful to have you on the show. Look forward to doing it again later on this season. Maybe Indiana's going to have you in here for Indiana and Michigan, because the Wolverines come to visit as well. But we're grateful to have you. Grateful for your time. Thank you. I cannot thank you enough.
No worries, man. Thank you for having me on your show anytime, man. It was great to talk to you. Go Hoosiers.
We got a lot coming up. Stay tuned. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming back with more from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day, or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
This is James Blackman Jr., former Indiana Hoosier. Make sure you're keeping up with the Hoosiers on Indiana Sports Beat.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, of course, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios here on this Monday, September 16. Monday. Man, it is a blue Monday if you're an Indiana football fan. Not a good weekend, but there were some other things that went well for the Hoosiers over the weekend. Women's soccer, women's volleyball, great wins for them, both down in Lexington over Kentucky teams. So always great to get a win over Kentucky in anything. But man, can't pretend it didn't happen, because it did, and it was bad. Tom Allen afterwards really didn't cut any corners with what he said. Let's hear what his opening remarks from getting beat by the Ohio State Buckeyes 51-10.
Well, rough day for the Hoosiers. Very disappointed in how we performed, but stand before you, take responsibility for how our team takes the field and plays each and every week, and wasn't good enough. We've, in my mind, have established a standard how we're going to play on both sides of football and in special teams, and all three phases weren't good enough today. So no anything but respect for the Buckeyes and their staff and their team. They're an excellent football team, and they played at a high level today, and we didn't match it. So therefore, you get the result that you got. So I got to evaluate the film and learn what we can learn from this, flush it, and press on. Questions?
Raise your hand if you have questions for Mr. Mike Town.
Coach, as much as you talked about the missed tackles and such, and we wanted quite a bit of emphasis on that, they had a whole bunch more of that today. That had to be a big disappointment for you.
Yeah, major disappointment. Probably the biggest. There were several, but that one might be the leader of the pack. So just continue to, I want to just really go back and find out exactly within this game, who and how, and get some answers on that, because to me that's just that's where it all starts. The bottom line is you have to run the football on offense and stop the run on defense, and we didn't do either one of those today. And when you don't, you make it really, really difficult. And so, some of those were because of missed tackles, but it's just got to keep working on it. I know we got a lot of young guys on defense, but those young guys are a year older than they were a year ago, and they got to rise up and they got to tackle those big, strong backs that like they had today. So just very, very disappointing.
Tom Allen, after a 55-10 defeat at the hands of number 6 Ohio State Buckeyes, they sound almost as quizzed about this as we are, which that's shocking because they see this every day. And if it's not, then wow, that's even a deeper area of concern. Raekwon Jones is one of the defensive stalwarts for the Hoosiers. Talk to him afterwards.
I mean, they're a great team. Got great athletes, great coaches. Expect great things from them. But, I feel like we got great players, great coaches, great scheme. And we just didn't execute to the standard that we have, created for ourselves. And just I've seen at practice, through camp, every day, and other games, just wasn't to the standard.
Wasn't to anyone's standard. And it's a little bit mind-boggling. It's not that they got beat. I mean, let's face it, they were playing one of the top teams in the country. This is the toughest game that Indiana's going to play all year, as far as toughest team. This is a team that very well may be in the national playoff hunt. They are in the national playoff hunt. Let's don't kid ourselves. And that's a better Ohio State team than I saw last year. But that's a worse Indiana team than what I saw last year. There's the difference. Both teams going in different directions. Indiana's defense was just porous. Could not tackle. And, brother, if you can't tackle in football, you got some big problems. Then you're letting guys into the secondary, and they're running wild all over the place. 314 yards rushing. That's a lot to give up. Over 500 yards of total offense. They've got to get some things straightened up quickly. UConn comes to town, which Indiana's already a 28-point favorite, which is a little amazing. I'm from what I saw the other day, I'd be surprised they could score 28 points. But they won't be playing the Ohio State Buckeyes this week. Make no mistake about that. But there are just so many issues that are glaring. They were not competitive in any phase of the game. No phase of the game were they competitive. There was a block punt, not the fault of Hayden Whitehead, but Coach, the very next punt, he shanks horribly. And Coach Allen referenced in his press conference that he got shook up from the block punt. That's not acceptable. You can't get shook up because of a failed executed play previously. You got to get going and play the next play. And he's been such a solid performer for Indiana, so I'm not getting on Hayden Whitehead, although it sounds like it. Well, maybe I'm a little bit. Just a little bit. He's been gold for Indiana, and love what he's done. He's been a leader for that team as well. But you can't get shook up on the next play when you got to go out there. You've got to flush that and move on, man. You can't let that affect you. I think he actually shanked the next two punts, but definitely the next one. But you can't blame that on the prior. You got to get back to biz and take care of biz, and that didn't happen. The defensive line of Ohio State just stuffed Indiana. 42 rushing yards. I mean, I guess I could beat that drum all day if I want. It's not any fun. But man, I don't know what else to say about it. You've got what you have in the running back room. You got a guy that rushed for over 1,100 yards last year. You got Cole Guest back, who's faster this year than he was last year. You got Samson James, who is going to be a really good running back. But these guys can't get anywhere. I don't know how fast they are in the backfield. Because one thing I saw from the Ohio State defense was speed. Dudes, they're quick. Any play that looked like it may have been open, closed quickly. Those passes out into the flats, trying to alleviate the lack of having a deep threat, they closed so fast. They were negative yards. There were so many series where Indiana had negative yards. I mean, again, you're playing one of the best teams in the country. So there's expected a drop-off of some. But this, Indiana looked like Eastern Illinois. How Indiana made Eastern Illinois look, that's what Ohio State did to Indiana. They made them look that bad. Let's hope they can get it turned around. Let's hope they can get things fixed. But the running game is of great, great concern. It is no longer a question mark. It's of great concern. Because the week after you play UConn, you play the number 2 rush defense in the country. You better have a Michael Penix, hopefully by then, that can throw the ball. Because that's the only way you're going to beat a Michigan State. You're not going to run on them with a team that can't run. That's what they do. Stop the run. Man, it's been so positive on this team up till now. It's just such a disappointment to see them play like they played. Losing is one thing, but just getting absolutely handed it to you, having it handed to you for 60 minutes, disappointing. I also disagree with not starting Jack Tuttle in the second half. Some people can say that would have been like throwing him to the wolves. Well, that's a great way to learn. They had nothing to lose. You think it could have gotten worse? I don't. I think because Tuttle has the ability to throw downfield, if nothing else, you're getting him some snaps, a lot more snaps than those mop-up minutes that he had. I'm sure I'm wrong about that, and that's okay. I think that when what is inevitable, do something. Use that time as good as best you can. I don't think Indiana did that. But it's sad when we got to talk about women's soccer and women's volleyball as the highlight. Not as a knock to them, because we follow everything. We cover IU everything. IU women's soccer, and we want them to do as best they can. But that can't be your highlight. The football and basketball programs of any university are the bell cow sports. You want everything to do well, as Indiana is having that, with the exception of football and basketball. So hopefully they can get things turned around on both sides. Man, what a negative Monday. Kind of sucks. It's a bad way to start the week, man. Tomorrow night, Indiana men's soccer taking on Notre Dame at Bill Armstrong Stadium. That should be a hell of a crowd for that. Indiana unbeaten on the year right now. Notre Dame, always another top program. This is always a big, big time game. Looking forward to this thing. Tuesday night under the lights. That ought to be a fun night if Indiana can get a win. I can't take any more big losses this week. It's depressing. It's not the loss, man. It's just how they did it. It's just how it came about. Oh, didn't mean to turn that on. My bad. It was still open. Text in the show from Tim. Illinois quarterback threw 4 touchdowns and 225 yards passing on UConn's defense for the win. Well, that was not last Saturday. I think that was 2 weeks ago, because they got beat. Did they get beat by Temple over the weekend?
No, that was Maryland. They got beat by
Maryland.
Temple.
Yeah, Maryland. That's another. Couldn't believe that. Maryland, who had come off to they scored like 1,000 points to start the season. Woo! Man, did they come back to reality. Lost to Temple. And I think Tim had sent me a text that the head coach and the athletic director at Temple are both former IU people. How about that? Something. UConn lost 31-23 in that game to Illinois, but you can definitely throw on Illinois, but we'll see if they can throw on Indiana. Let's hope not. I mean, Indiana gave up only 214 yards passing because Ohio State didn't really need to throw the ball, but when they did, it was wide open. I mean, they hit the touchdown pass to I forget his name, but it was wide open. These guys were wide open. But Indiana had some guys that were wide open, but the throws were off or short and couldn't make those same plays. Does that make a difference? Yeah, it actually does. Is it going to make enough of a difference to win? No, probably not. But, man, it would have sure mitigated some circumstances of not being able to run the ball. It would have opened up some things, probably added a little scoring, at least from a field goal aspect or something. Very concerning. Very concerning. But we've got a lot more coming up here on the program today. Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, he's up in the next hour. Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier will join us as well. We've got a lot more, all that coming up from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Hey, this is Jordan Halls, former Indiana Hoosier. Keep up with Indiana sports on Indiana Sports Beat.
This hour is brought to you by Sweetland Waste and Removal Service, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin yang, come along.
Well, coming along on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thanks a lot. Coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Jake's got his hands on the wheel, keeping us on the track. I'm Jim Coyle with you, as always, here on this Monday, September 16, a Blue Monday. If you're an Indiana football fan, as the Hoosiers are coming off of a 51-10 shellacking at the hands of number 6 Ohio State. Hopefully they can get things back in order this week. UConn comes to visit Indiana, already a 28-point favorite in that game, which is just a little shocking. While UConn is not a formidable opponent of the stature of Ohio State, they certainly gave Illinois all they wanted a couple of weeks ago, and we'll see how that goes. But a lot of big games over the weekend if you had a chance to watch them besides the Indiana game. How about Kansas? Les Miles, former LSU coach, goes out to Kansas, which is a cemetery of football. But they were taking on the road in Boston College, which was a 19.5-point favorite. They beat Boston College 48-24. That's a huge win for them. Washington State, my man Mike Leach beats Houston 31-24. Maryland, a team that I had thought was like, well, look out. That's going to be somebody to be reckoned with. They scored a ton of points to open the season up. Whew. Back to reality, as Eminem would say. 20-17 loss on the road to the Temple Owls. And I believe the Temple is coached by an former IU guy, and the athletic director is a former IU guy. How about that? Furman gave Virginia Tech all they wanted before succumbing 24-17. West Virginia big over North Carolina State, 44-27. How about Penn State? Boy, that was a slobber knocker with Pittsburgh. 17-10 is the final. The Nittany Lions come out of victorious. Number 3, Georgia, 55-0, a win over Arkansas State. But some fun games to watch. A lot of fun pro games yesterday. Man, Indianapolis, they've got problems with their kicker, Evan Terry, veteran kicker, been with them for, I think, since 1996. Tim said, wow.
He's been playing since before that, but he was with the Patriots before he was with the Colts.
Yeah, he's been playing since 1886. But been with the Colts for 14 or 16 years, a long, long time. The greatest kicker in the history of the league, no doubt. And you really hate to see this happen. He's missed extra points in 3 consecutive games. He cost him the game earlier. He nearly cost him a game yesterday with another missed extra point. Missed a field goal yesterday. And it was so odd. I'm watching that game, and he kicks the extra point when the Colts scored to go ahead. And it's going right down the middle, and it just hooks to the right. Hits the upright, bounces off. That gave Indianapolis a 2-point lead, 19-17, and Tennessee got the ball back. Some tense moments, but the defense stepped up, hold them, keeps Tennessee out of field goal position, and they can't get a kick off. They were close, but couldn't get quite there to get it off, and that would have been miserable to see the Colts lose by 1 with a field goal. But apparently Adam Vinatieri is going to address the media today, which is not a normal thing for the NFL players to be addressing the media on Mondays, but that will be happening. Will we be hearing him retire? Quite possibly. If he was any other kicker, he probably would have been cut last week, if we're being frank. He would have been cut last week. The NFL teams do not stand for losing a game by a kicker, much less potentially 2. But this is not any kicker. This is Adam Vinatieri. This is the greatest kicker in the history of the league, who has done so much for the city of Indianapolis, for that franchise. So he gets a little different look than anybody else would. Temple coach Rod Carey was the center for Indiana back in 1990 to 93. That's when I was in school. Huh. He played with my former roommates, Vince Fisher and Jim Sams. How about that? The athletic director, I believe, is also from Indiana. Something I mentioned as far as Indiana, Tim texted in, Tuttle should have been given the 4th quarter since we were obviously not going to win. Maybe he could have come in and actually done something. He actually did. Get some mop-up minutes, but I think he should have started the entire half. What do you got to lose? There was no chance of that team coming back, in my mind. None. So why not? Because anybody can hand the ball off, but throwing deep was something they were lacking because of the Michael Penix injury. We don't know when he's coming back. We don't know the severity of it as his injury. It's an undisclosed injury. I know what the injury is, but it's not been made official, so I can't say it. I think most people already know, but I'm not going to say it. You already know. But the thing is, we don't know the severity. Tom Allen said at the press conference last Thursday, when he announced that he wouldn't play, that it was not something that they thought was long-term. I doubt we're going to see him against UConn. They're going to rest him, I would imagine, unless he's completely healed. They're going to rest him against UConn because they're a 28-point favorite. They shouldn't need him. Now, just because they're a 28-point favorite after what I saw last week, I'm not all that confident. They can't run the ball. They haven't run the ball against anybody. They didn't run the ball against Eastern Illinois. And they killed that team. So there's I don't know that UConn is just a chip shot anymore. I'm really not concerned what Las Vegas has to say. I know what I saw. There's some concerns there, man. And I hate to say that for a team I've been so positive on, so high on. I thought this team could win 7-8 games. That team I saw Saturday cannot win 7 or 8 games. They have got to do some serious come to Jesus meetings. Things have got to change. The coaches have got to coach better. The players have to play better. They have to perform. And I'll be honest with you, the words of the week and all that stuff, to me, that's high school stuff. It's time to play. It's time to tackle. Pass, run, hit, tackle. Those are the 4 words that should be the words of the week. Tackle. There's a word of the week. Tackle. I'm being a little facetious and a little harsh, but I think it's time for a little tough love, man. It's time for some reality. And a reality check is what the Hoosiers got on Saturday. They have an opportunity to clean things up this week. They have an opponent that they're expected to beat handily if you listen to Las Vegas. Hopefully that's the case. Hopefully Michael Penix gets back sooner rather than later. Hoosier Hysteria is coming up, of course, in a couple of weeks. Indiana basketball announced that Calbert Cheney will be in attendance. Wish he was going to be there as a player. But the all-time leading scorer in the Big Ten, one of the absolute favorites in the history of Indiana basketball from Evansville Harrison High School. It's amazing. Isn't there a certain recruit that's going to be there? Oh, yeah. Christian Lander. Where's he? Oh, yeah, from Evansville. You think that's a coincidence? I don't think so. And that's fine. Pull out the stops, man. Pull out the stops. That's a recruit that Archie cannot lose. He loses that recruit, there are going to be some serious pissed off people. You just there's certain recruits you've got to land. And he's one of them. Let's just be honest about it. They've got to land that guy. But what they also have to do, they have to land a big guy. I've been beating that drum for the last week. It's true. They are looking at a little County Mountie. Not really a County Mountie, but he's a Canadian. A big from up north. 6'11", Javante Brown Ferguson, who Mike reclassified to 2020. Well, they need him in the 2020. They need to get those kids in now to get them the experience under the big guys that will be gone 2 years from now. Well, they won't be coming in now. They'll be coming in next season. So that would give them a season of seasoning under the bigs that Indiana currently has. Or will have then. Deron Davis will be gone. But you'll have Justin Smith. You'll have Joey Brunk. And you'll have Trace Jackson Davis with a year under his belt by then. Hopefully they also, Dawson Garcia, target number 1, of course, another big 6'11 kid out of from the Great White North up in Minnesota. Minnesota, eh? Still trying to land a point guard. Anthony Leal and Trey Galloway will already made their commitments to Indiana, but they will be making their official visits, along with Christian Lander at Hoosier Hysteria. I'm sure there'll be more names coming up here. I'm sure they're trying to get Javante to visit. I'm sure they're trying to get Dawson Garcia to visit Hoosier Hysteria more than anything. We'll see if that comes to fruition. Certainly hoping that it does. But, man, it was a little frustrating of a weekend, to be honest with you. And today's the press conference, the normal weekly press conference with football. I'll be heading out there as soon as the show's over. I'll be heading straight to that. Meet with Tom Allen, meet with Kalen DeBoer, Kane Womack, and several of the players as well. And I'll have that for you tomorrow and for the rest of the week. Also, we're getting the opportunity to talk to Steve Aird and one of his players as they get their first road win. They knocked off number 15 Kentucky in Lexington's Memorial Coliseum over the weekend. Huge win. Great win. Congratulations. But we'll have that tomorrow as well. The women's soccer team beat Kentucky also in Lexington. Big weekend for the Olympic programs. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Text in from Joker. The OSU offense is a reality. It is exactly what I thought it would be when I hired Coach Wilson. Think what he did at IU, the lack of talent. He has all the explosion. That's right. Coach Wilson kinds of talent at OSU. He has full reins on the offense now. He was sharing the OC duties with now OSU head coach, which I think held the offense back. Well, it certainly didn't hold him back the other day. But, I'm almost tired of talking about it. But we got Don Fischer coming up next, man, the voice of the Hoosiers. Looking forward always to talk to Don, of course. Probably got more conversation about the football game to talk about. Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier joins us today as well. He'll be at the last segment of the program. But that's going to wrap it up for this segment. We got a lot more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Back with more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
I'm Ryan Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
You're on the line with Jamal Meeks, former Indiana Hoosier, number 23, 1992. And I'm on the beat with Jim Cole.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat, of course, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. One of the highlights of our week as we get to talk to the voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer. Don's with us right now. Don, how are you, sir? How was your weekend?
It was 50-50. Just Saturday and Sunday, it was 50-50, as everybody knows.
Yeah, it was a rough week, rough game for the Hoosiers. There's no way to sugarcoat it. I've been rewatching it, and it's like, wow, it's almost as painful the second time around.
Well, it made you feel like, you know how badly Indiana conquered Eastern Illinois a week ago? It made you feel like just the opposite this week. As dominant as Indiana was against the Panthers, they were just that meek against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Ohio State was everything we've heard and probably even more in the sense of how good their defense has gotten over a year ago, dramatically better. Greg Madison, who came from Michigan, has taken over that program's defensive coordinating spot, did a magnificent job. He's got these guys playing at an elite level, to say the least, and they just looked terrific on defense. Indiana was swarmed the entire day. Peyton Ramsey was sacked, I think, 5 times or 4 times in the ball game. There's just no question that Ohio State is as good as advertised. The problem is that Indiana is not, or at least it hasn't played up to that capability or what we thought was the capability from the beginning of this season. I honestly thought this defense was going to be really, really good this year. Yes, they're young in some spots, and they've got a lot more depth. They've got a lot more talent. Their athleticism, the speed, all those kinds of things are better. Unfortunately, they're not playing better. And that's the most concerning thing to me. They're missing tackles. They did that in the Ball State game, first game of the season, had tons of missed tackles. They did exactly the same thing on Saturday against Ohio State. And granted, Ohio State's talent, size, and physicality and all those kinds of things play a part in how that made Indiana look on Saturday. But there is still no excuse for the number of missed tackles that were made in this, or that were not made in this ball game. And the problems and some of the silly mistakes that they've made, even the special teams, which has been a plus for this team in the first couple of ball games, turned out to be a negative in this contest. Maybe the only positive in that vein was David Ellis continues to look like a really good return guy on kickoffs. But unfortunately, the mistakes that were made in this ball game just kind of destroyed any opportunity for Indiana to make a contest out of it. And I'm talking about the early things. Obviously, the first series, Ohio State makes a mistake. They can't score because they miss a field goal. Indiana comes back down the field. They lose. They can't do anything offensively, or not enough offensively to keep it. But then after Ohio State scored, Indiana all of a sudden kind of changed the way they were going about their business from an offensive standpoint and from a defensive standpoint, and played them pretty tough for 10, 12 minutes. And then all of a sudden the second quarter begins and the mistakes start over. And a block punt probably set up as much of the problems they had the rest of the day as anything, because Hayden Whitehead, who I think is an All-American punter, he suddenly got rattled. Went out there, he had a 12-yard punt after that. Didn't punt the balls effectively. They didn't block as well on the special teams so that he could get the punts off in an effective manner. There were just so many things that happened in this contest from a defensive and special team standpoint. And then we go to the offensive side of the football. And what happened there? Well, it continues to be a major problem that this team cannot run the football. You've got the backs to do it. You don't have the offensive line, and it would appear, because on Saturday they had 42 offensive yards. I mean, that's just ridiculous. There's no way Indiana's going to beat people if they can't run the football more effectively than that. So what's going to happen with this team? I don't know. But the big problem right now is the team looked more like the old Indiana and not the new Indiana that we've seen over recent years, competitive against everybody that they play. And I don't know if that's the mentality of the football team. I don't know if it's the mirage that we thought was the talent that this team has. All I know is they're not playing like the Indiana we anticipated to see this year.
Yeah, I look at the stats, Don, and that number of 42 just jumps off the page on the offensive side. And then you look over and you see that Stevie Scott had only 6 carries for 9 yards. That's really got to be a great point of concern because he's a guy that we expected a lot of. He rushed for over 1,100 yards last year, and this line may not be as deep as possibly, but there's still what we thought was a solid line. And man, they cannot run the ball. And doing it against Ball State was scary in and of itself, but when you see it again, it really makes you wonder if there's a serious pattern there.
Well, think about, against Eastern Illinois, a team that's totally outmanned. Indiana had, 116 yards?
Yep.
In their rushing game?
Yep.
And tried to run it because they didn't want to run up the score any more than what they were doing with their passing attack. Honestly, this team hasn't run the ball at all at this point in the season. And if that's not a red light for this coaching staff, I don't know what is. And part of the game plan on Saturday, because Indiana, the coaching staff obviously didn't feel like Indiana was going to be able to protect Peyton Ramsey in the normal framework of their play calling and so on and so forth, because what they do with Peyton Ramsey, they tried to get him to get rid of the football as quickly as he possibly could in that contest. And they still got him sacked, 3 or 4 times. So right now, this team is in a quandary. And a part of that quandary, in my opinion, is the mentality of this football team. I haven't seen Tom Allen's teams, or Kevin Wilson's for that matter, in the previous several years. I've not seen them play with that lack of physicality, toughness, and the belief in themselves that we had come to expect. They're not playing with that belief at this juncture. I don't know why. I can't figure that out. And it's going to be something that this team has got to address, and they're going to have to look in the mirror this week and find a way to turn things around, or this is going to be a really long season.
Yeah, after the game, talking to Peyton Hendershot, and I'm not pointing him out in any way because he was giving an honest answer. He said that maybe they were just lackadaisical, and I'm like, how can you be lackadaisical against the number 6 team in the country? And he was just honest and said, well, maybe because we were 2-0, we just beat the heck out of somebody, and I'm like, wow. So it does make you wonder where their mentality is and how they're thinking about their approach.
Well, I because I go to practice, I'm not going to say a lot. I can't say a lot because I'm expected to keep my mouth shut, and I try to. But again, and when Peyton Hendershot says that, and I'm not getting on Peyton Hendershot here, there's no way that you can go into an Ohio State game lackadaisical. There's just no way. And if that is your mentality, then there needs to be a intervention. I don't know how else to put it. With this football team, because you're playing one of the best teams in the country. Yeah, you've given them a tough go here in several years. You haven't beaten them, though. You haven't beaten them. You've got to have the mentality that we've got to go out there and prove that we're as good as these guys, and we're going to do it by winning. And this team hasn't figured that out yet, apparently, because obviously Saturday was ridiculous.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I guess a lot of guys, they just want to flush that and move on. I don't know that that's possible. But the biggest question now is about the return of Michael Penix and when he can get back. And And that's a question I don't know the answer to.
Well, none of us do. Obviously, we don't know what the injury is. We don't know how serious it is. It sounded like it was a game-time decision, or that they were going to try and make it a game-time decision. Whether or not that is the case, we'll just have to wait and see. But here's the other thing. Do you think Michael Penix would have made a difference in this ball game on Saturday against Ohio State?
No, because when you can't run the ball and you can't stop them from running over you, your quarterback's not going to do a lot to help that.
Exactly. So, no, Michael Penix would have made no difference. If Peyton Ramsey is the quarterback, I have no issue with that, because Peyton Ramsey is smart. He's a leader. The kids play with him, or play behind him, and look up to him. Did he do a good job on Saturday? I think he probably did about as good a job as he possibly could have under the pressure that he was on from the Ohio State defense.
He was running for his life half the day,
exactly.
It seemed like.
Exactly. And Kalen DeBoer set up this game plan, and it was probably the only game plan that Indiana could have had a chance with, and it just didn't function because they couldn't block anybody. And blocking and tackling are the name of this game. It is the front five on offense and the front four on defense that set the tone for every football team, offensively and defensively. And right now we're not seeing anywhere near as good in those two areas as it's got to be if this is going to be a winning football team.
The only good news for Indiana football right now is this week they have UConn coming in, and they've already been made a 28-point favorite over UConn.
Well,
so that tells you.
Think about it.
I know.
Think about this. They're a 28-point favorite over UConn. Well, UConn gave Illinois all they could handle last week, or 2 weeks ago, 31-23 is what Illinois beat UConn by. So UConn came back in that ball game and made a game of it late, and they're under Coach Randy Edsall, who was at UConn for years. He was there for, I think, 10 years back in the early 2000 era, and beat Indiana at Indiana, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
And without question, Randy Edsall's a good football coach, and maybe their program has been down a little bit, but he's had 2 weeks to prepare for Indiana. He saw what Ohio State did, and if he's got anything close, I mean, I'm sure he doesn't have the same talent level as Ohio State, but he'll work out some formula that can be very effective against Indiana, and if Indiana doesn't play up to their capabilities, they will have themselves a hard contest. I don't care what the spread is at this juncture. I care about results on the field and what I see and how this team will perform in the sense of how they go about their business, especially after a week of embarrassment after this Ohio State game. And if they come out there and just go whole hum and that was an aberration, they're going to get their butts handed to them again.
Yeah, that would be a very, very disappointing end if that were to happen. But let's hope that they can use this week and right the wrongs. Fortunately for Indiana, there were some good news over the weekend from the women's programs. How about the women's soccer team going down and knocking off an undefeated Kentucky team in Lexington?
Well, you know what? There's no question that the what they call the Olympic sports teams in Indiana have probably been the highlight over the last several years for this program, for the entire athletic program. I mean, men's soccer has been dominant. Continues to be dominant. The women's soccer team now coming up and doing something that's been special. The volleyball team looks like it's getting better. The baseball team had a really good year last year under their first-year head coach. I mean, that's the one thing you can talk about in Indiana right now, and those aren't the two main goals, though. The football and basketball teams always have been. They will always get the most attention, but those other teams, as you point out, are doing a pretty good job of at least keeping Indiana recognizable in the standpoint of being positive. So from my perspective, congratulations to all of the teams in Indiana that are not football and basketball at this point.
Yeah, women's volleyball also went down to Lexington and beat Kentucky, number 15 Kentucky down there. First time Indiana's beat a ranked team on the road for several years, I saw. So congratulations to Coach Steve Aird and Edwin Van Bennekom. But like you said, the bell cow sports, man, basketball and football, those are what people want to see do well. And it's almost like Indiana took a step back. I saw some people refer back to the Bill Lynch days, and that's not he was a great guy, but not a fond time in Indiana football fans' memories.
Well, and here's what I would say about that, too. I mean, yeah, there were a couple of years there at the end when Bill Lynch was coaching that Indiana didn't look very good at all. But they also had some years under Bill Lynch, including the Terry Hepner interim coaching year where Terry Hepner had passed away, that they were a pretty good football program. And there were some really positive things that happened at that point. The problem right now is that the last 8 years, Indiana football has gotten better in the sense of their competitiveness and their toughness. That didn't show up on Saturday, and that concerns me. If we continue to see that kind of slide away, then this football team and this program has got some problems that they've got to get fixed. And I'm not placing the blame on the coaching staff. I'm not placing the blame on any individuals. I'm simply saying the mentality has got to change, and it's going to have to change quickly.
Absolutely, because they were heading in the right direction, and it can't go this direction much further because it's also going to affect the bottom line, the fans. I mean, I'm afraid they're going to barely get 25,000 there next week.
Well, our fan base, and you don't want to get me started on our fan base because we have about 20 to 25,000 really loyal Indiana football fans, and after that it is strictly fair weather stuff.
Absolutely. Don Fischer, I cannot thank you enough, as always, for joining us this week. Look forward to the conversation again next week.
All right. Thanks for having me, Jim. I'm sorry to be a dour Dewey today.
Man, you're a teller of the truth, brother. Teller of the truth. Hopefully we have better truths to talk about next week.
Me too.
Don, have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. Don Fischer joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. We'll be back with more from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
Everybody rise, men and women, boys and girls. Each one teach one, but we can't save the world. All in one day, you got to take it play by play. And once you're on the path, don't you ever go astray. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can give a man some...
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
This is James Blackman Jr., former Indiana Hoosier. Make sure you're keeping up with the Hoosiers on Indiana Sports Beat.
Today's guest is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, with hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer. Pizza, burgers, beer. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, of course, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios here on this Monday, September 16, joined now by Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier. Mike, how are you doing?
Doing great, Jim. How are you?
I'm okay, man. It was an up-and-down weekend for the Indiana Hoosiers, very down on the football side. There's some good news we'll talk about in a minute, but, man, Ohio State showed that they are definitely one of the top teams in the country, and unfortunately Indiana showed they're not by any stretch of the imagination, as they just had their way with the Hoosiers on Saturday at Memorial Stadium. And, you know, it's not like there was a lot of hope going into it that's been built up, but, boy, that hope was dashed very quickly because it was evident fast that Ohio State was just way better and Indiana was not good.
Yeah, it was a major reality check. Way more so than I expected. I mean, I think I predicted a final score of 45-17, but it was one of those predictions where you think it's probably not going to be this bad, but man, it was worse, and it was just a complete domination. I mean, I think Indiana held their ground the first few drives and had you thinking maybe, but you know, one of the reasons why I predicted kind of a blowout type of score is because I really felt like when the quarterback story changed over the course of the week, I just didn't feel like Peyton Ramsey was going to provide a dynamic and enough aspect to the offense. And that, I don't know what you think, but that was kind of one of my biggest takeaways. That and just the struggle in the trenches on both sides of the ball. I think Indiana was clearly overmatched on both lines, but I think when Ramsey did have a chance, he just wasn't able to get much done against, you know, superior athletes and really tight windows out there.
Absolutely. I've said it already on the show today that there were opportunities for plays to be made. Indiana had some receivers open. There was one particular Whop Fillier had broken open down the left side, and he's got a good 3-yard cushion on his defender, and he had to slow up, wait for the ball. And by the time the ball got there, it hits the defender in the back of the head. There were other times when receivers were open and that he just missed. He missed, I think it was another Whop Fillier down the sideline. He overthrows him. That's been the knock on him. Now, he was running for his life half the day as well. He wasn't getting the protection he needed. He hit the ground several times because of that. The running game was unbelievably atrocious, and it is a serious cause of concern. You got 42 yards against this team. 42. Stevie Scott, your big man, he rushes 6 times and gets 9 yards. That's barely a yard. That's barely over a yard a carry, yard and a half a carry. That's just terrible. And I don't care who you're playing. You've got to be competitive, and that was not a word that came to mind at all after that contest Saturday.
Yeah, you're right. And I guess we should have been more on top of this after the first 2 games because, you know, Indiana's running game did not look good at all against either Ball State or Eastern Illinois. And I know there was talk about, you know, opposition stacking the box and whatnot, but, you know, you'd like to think that against that level of competition, you know, no matter what the scheme is, you're going to still be able to put up big numbers. So I think the red flags were there, and I think, you know, we're really going to have to pay close attention to what's going on with the offensive line here because I think there was obviously some big losses last year with Brandon Knight and Wes Martin. And I think the starting 5, you know, at least we thought going into the season that they still had a good starting 5 up front, but it's not playing out so far. And then the depth behind those guys I don't think is producing at all right now.
Yeah, and I don't know that this was a fact, and I'm not picking on Peyton Hendershot because he played one of the best games of the day. He had 4 receptions, 70 yards, led the Hoosiers in that category. 49 of those coming on a pass from Donovan Hale,
the only touchdown pass of the day. And when you got to resort to trickery to basically get anything, you know that's a problem. But one of the things that he was very honest in the post game. Here's what Peyton asking of what happened.
It's just good to show us like where we are, and then it makes you practice harder throughout the week. I think some people got complacent and weren't working as hard today, and maybe it works you up, and so like you think every rep counts, and then you make it matter more.
How can you be complacent going into a game like Ohio State?
Because we were 2-0, and we used to be a team 52-0, so we thought we were really good, I guess, the word.
Yeah, I don't think that an Indiana football team has any right to be complacent. I don't care if they're 8-0. The history here shows you that you just have to play every game, and it looked like that. There was complacency all over the place, continuing on the defensive side with these missed tackles. It's like, what the hell, guys? I mean, this is one thing that Indiana's looked at in the last couple of years is defense, how it had really taken pride and gotten better under Tom Allen, and there seems to be a great regression going on.
Yeah, you know, and I think Allen rightly pointed to missed tackles as part of the issue, but I think, again, I point to the defensive line and the front seven just getting blown off the ball, because I think once you get athletes like Ohio State has out in space and you're trying to tackle them one-on-one, I think you're, in some respects, already beat before you even get started. You've got to get push up front. You've got to get penetration against their line, and Indiana wasn't getting that. A lot of the missed tackles that I saw were, you know, one-on-one type situations after a guy was coming downhill 5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, and that's just not a winning formula for Indiana. I think when Tom Allen came on in 2016 and kind of did turn around the defense, I think we saw a lot more, you know, guys like Scales and Covington and those guys getting upfield and making plays in the backfield. And we're just not seeing that at all right now. And I think a lot of it goes back to the defensive line just getting blown off the ball, and, you know, everything's kind of on your heels from there.
Yeah, and then Indiana's secondary has been vaunted as being one of the best in the conference potentially this year, and they got hit several times on Saturday as well. There was 5 Ohio State receivers that had double digits in yards, 2 guys over 60 yards on that, and just they didn't have to use it a lot, but whenever they went to it, it was just effective, and the receivers were wide open.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't really tried or been able to kind of wrap my mind around how to talk about this, but it is one of the disappointments from that game and really the season as a whole. I really expected this secondary to be not just good but really impactful, and I just haven't seen them making a lot of plays, and, you know, against Ohio State, you know, just flat out getting beat. And it's, you know, I think we were all counting on that aspect of the defense to really be the game changer if they were going to take a step forward this year, and there's really just no signs of that right now. I mean, it's obviously just 3 games into the season, and you don't want to overreact, but by the same token, it's hard to not overreact when you get beat 51-10 by anyone.
And I got to tell you, I don't even think that if Michael Penix had been available and playing, that they could have won this game from what I saw. I mean, I think he could have made some of those passes that weren't made, and that wouldn't have been a problem, but I don't think that was enough to alleviate all the other negatives that were going on the lines and on the defensive side. They just couldn't stop Ohio State whatsoever, and they could do nothing because the quarterback's not going to matter how your running game is if you cannot get a running game going, which I know people are going to say, well, yeah, if you can throw the bits. And no, it wouldn't have mattered with this team, I'm telling you. If they had even made those catches, I don't think they would have slowed that defensive line of Ohio State's down one bit.
Yeah, I mean, he may have made a difference, but it would have been marginal. I think we saw there was a game last year against Penn State where, you know, Penn State really focused on stacking the box and forcing Penix to beat them when he came into that game, and I think he was like 9 for 19, so it was one of his least efficient games as an Indiana quarterback, and he was similarly on the run a lot in that game, and so, you know, I don't think if you have no running game and you have Michael Penix, you know, on the run 2 to 3 seconds into the snap, I don't think he's going to be making a big impact throwing into a secondary that, you know, can match up with Indiana's receivers very well.
Here's what Peyton Ramsey had to say afterwards.
Say so. I think they did a good job of knocking us out of our rhythm early, and we came out with a lot of confidence. I think, especially in pregame and this whole week, we had a good week of prep, but they came out and they punched us in the mouth, and I do think it caught us off guard and knocked us out of our rhythm a little bit.
Yeah, they certainly punched him in the mouth. There's no doubt about that. The first two series that Indiana had, they went 3 and out both times and had -7 yards.
Yeah, and I think it's just going to be real interesting to see how this team reacts, because I went back through the last 3 years since Allen has been at IU either as coordinator or head coach, and they've never had a loss quite like this. There's been a couple bad ones. I think the biggest margin of loss may have been like 28 points, but nothing that looked or felt this extreme. And so, I think Ramsey's right. They did get smacked in the mouth, and, it did just become something that snowballed and they couldn't overcome. But now, to use Allen's term, you have to flush it. And can they do that? How quickly can they just put this one behind them and play a game against a team that, I think, I don't know if you were surprised, but I don't know how bad UConn is, but Indiana's a 28-point favorite in this game coming up. So it's
shocking to me.
At least rebuild some confidence.
And then you have to. The next question is, when does Michael Penix return? We don't know. We don't know the severity of whatever injury it is that he has, and so therefore, I'm thinking they're going to rest him next week anyway, because they're not going to need him towards UConn. They're already been made a 28-point favorite with him on the shelf, which shocks me. But the week after that, I believe you've got a Michigan State game, who is one of the top defenses around, although they took a huge loss Saturday night up in East Lansing to Arizona State. Coach Herm Edwards, you play to win the game, and they did. But yeah, I mean, Michigan State is a team that they don't have to worry about preparing. Though they're prepared for Michael Penix, and if it's Peyton Ramsey, they're good to go, because I don't think that anybody sees that as a problem that they have to deal with.
Yeah, and all these Big Ten teams have seen Ramsey for the last 2 years, so they pretty much know how to approach him right now. I think Penix could be a little bit more of a wild card. I mean, I don't think anybody asked this after the game on Saturday, but I think the fact that Penix was actually fully dressed in uniform at least suggested that what Coach Allen's saying about his status being, more short-term than long-term seems right. I don't think you'd even have him in uniform if that wasn't the case. So, I think maybe we'll find out more this week about his availability, but it doesn't seem like anything that's going to knock him out for the season or anything along those lines.
The one thing that I tweeted out at halftime was there is no reason that they don't start Jack Tuttle for the second half, because they're getting nothing at the current situation. And I'm not blaming it on Peyton Ramsey, but I do blame on the fact that he can't hit the deep pass. Now, I don't know that Jack Tuttle could have done much different. He did see action toward the end, mop-up duty, and you saw that, it's not quite the same, but he's got to get experience. He does have the capability of going downfield, so why, if you're getting destroyed as it is, why not try to get him as much experience as you can? Because they had no chance in that game. There was no coming back on that game. I mean, you can tell when there's a possibility of that. That was not the case Saturday. So I just really think that they missed an opportunity to get him some serious reps in that second half.
Yeah, I would not have had any issue if they had. The only reason I can think maybe why they didn't is at least as long as Ohio State had their starting defense in the game, is just you're kind of throwing the new guy to the wolves. But that's also the reality of playing in the Big Ten, so it goes both ways. But I certainly would have had no issue with him getting those reps. Ramsey's, as other coaches know, and as we know, he's a known commodity. He is what he is, right, wrong, or indifferent. And in Tuttle, we don't know, and he's a guy that really needs experience. So it would not have been a move that I don't think too many people would have questioned, other than, it would have led to a lot of, Q&A in the post-game presser about are you throwing in the towel with Ramsey and that sort of thing. But no, I don't disagree.
On the other side of basketball, we know that Archie is trying to land either a point guard or a big guy. Dawson Garcia, of course, number one on the list. Tim texted into the show earlier that the basketball staff was visiting 6'11" Canadian Javonte Brown-Ferguson, who might reclassify to the 2020 class. I've said it repeatedly over the last week. Indiana has to land a big guy for this class.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And if it's Garcia, I think he's option number one, but as your caller mentioned, they are visiting with Brown Ferguson. He's kind of a raw talent based on what I've seen and heard, but he's got interest from a very high level. I think he was also at Kansas and Texas A&M over the weekend, or they visited him perhaps. But so that speaks to the type of talent that he is, and so I think wherever they go, they are clearly going to need some length. I know you've said it repeatedly, and I can't agree more that you just don't know how long a Trace Jackson Davis is going to stick around. You know Joey Brunk's timeline. Deron Davis is gone after this year. It's clear that you need to start reloading there.
Absolutely, and then I did see that Calbert Chaney is going to be participating in the Hoosier Hysteria. Unfortunately, not as a player, but he'll be there for the Hoosiers, which will be something fun to look at. And I know they're going to have Anthony Leo there, and it's kind of ironic. Anthony Leo and Trey Galloway both making official visits that weekend. They've already committed to the Hoosiers, so it's not like a sell job you got to get done there.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting aspect of recruiting. I guess if you have unused official visits, you can still take them even if you've committed, because technically it's only a verbal commit at this point anyway. So that if they wanted to change their mind, they could. But there's that's not part of what this is about. They're just taking advantage of the opportunity, and they're really doing their own part in recruiting, because I think has been reported out there that Christian Lander, the 2021 point guard out of Evansville, will be at Hoosier Hysteria that weekend, and those guys, Leo and Galloway, were teammates with him on AAU play over the last year for Indiana Elite. Lander played up a year on U17 with Leo and Galloway, and so that's an opportunity for those guys to reconnect, and for Leo and Galloway to kind of do their sell job to get to help convince Lander and keep Indiana top of mind for him.
I had Don Fischer on earlier, and he mentioned, or I mentioned to him, a good weekend for other sports for Indiana. He referred to them, of course, as the Olympic sports correctly. Women's volleyball goes down to Lexington, Kentucky, knocks off the number 15 Kentucky Wildcats in Lexington. First road win in a long, long time. Congratulations to Steve Aird, but and coach in that squad. But I'm telling you, that program is on the rise.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's always good to see Indiana get a win over Kentucky in anything. And I think, I've spoken to Coach Aird here recently. I know you're a regular with him, and I think that's a program that people can definitely get excited to get behind it and keep an eye on. Coach Aird has a really impressive resume with national titles as an assistant at Penn State, did a turnaround job at Maryland, and really seems to have everything going in the right direction at IU, and has a really nice new facility right next to Assembly Hall called Wilkinson Hall that I think people should go check out if at all possible. I think it's a neat facility and a good program to get behind right now.
Absolutely. The women's soccer team also was in Lexington. They beat an undefeated Kentucky soccer team. So congratulations to Coach Ben Bennicom and the women's soccer team. That's not a team. That's not a program that has had a lot of notoriety. And he's new coach and trying to get things turned around. He's already been on the road against number 2 North Carolina and against an undefeated Kentucky team. Handed them their first loss of the season and scored the first goal on them in 4 games. So the I don't want to call them the minor sports, but as Don called them, the Olympic sports, looking good. Indiana sports overall looking really good, except for your 2 main sports, basketball and football, and that's got to be scary for a university.
Yeah, I mean, of course, those are the 2 sports that everybody focuses on, but and I know this upsets people to even say, because some people are so outwardly aggressive about the athletic director, but if you think about the hires that Fred Glass has made in those other sports, like baseball, Jeff Mercer was a home run hire, softball, Stanton was a home run hire, the sports you mentioned with volleyball and women's soccer looking like great hires. I mean, he's done a really good job with these other sports, but obviously everybody's going to focus on the big two, as you said.
And right now they're not carrying their weight. Indiana football looks almost regressive. I've used that word today. And Indiana basketball, let's face it, the fans are happy with the recruiting, but I still have my doubts. And I look at the overall performance of this basketball team as a whole, not just with under Archie Miller, but dude, they've missed the NCAA tournament 8 out of the last 11 years. There's no way to sugarcoat that.
Yeah, I think everybody at this point is in show me mode. I mean, I think you give any coach a couple of year grace period to get things going, but I think at this point, after a couple tournament misses for Coach Miller, I think that grace period has changed to okay. You're past that point now. Now it's time to show us, and I think we're there. And I think there's challenges with that because, the roster continues to turn over significantly, and I don't think he's got it to a point where it's his team, his roster, his identity yet. But that is working at the same time as, people are starting to get impatient. I'm not of the camp that it's rational or expected that, anything should happen here in the next year or two. But I think, every day that goes by where this program, the signature program of the school is not meeting the standards that everybody expects, that wave of impatience, it just is going to continue to grow.
Absolutely. Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier, thank you for joining us, man. Make sure you check out the All-IU free content from Mike Schumann at the Daily Hoosier. Have a good day, brother.
All right, Jim, you too. Have a great one.
You bet. That's going to wrap up the show for today. We appreciate Don Fischer joining us, of course, Mike Schumann there as well. You heard from Tom Allen and the great Gus Johnson. Tomorrow night, Indiana men's soccer taking on Notre Dame at Jerry Yeagley Field. That's going to be a big, big game for the men's soccer. Hopefully they can bring home another big victory. We'll have Tom Allen and several of the players tomorrow as well from today's press conference after the Ohio State debacle. So we'll get all that wrapped up to you. But we appreciate you joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. For Jake, I'm Jim Coyle, and until tomorrow from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, I will see you on the radio.
I'm still laughing like